Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. The first thing on our agenda is to consider the November meeting minutes. Are there any changes or additions to the November meeting minutes? If there are no changes, would someone like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I move approval of it. This is Tim.
I second. Ryan.
Thank you. I will go through and ask you to approve. Let's see. Ryan?
Approve.
Scott? Scott? Renat?
Approved.
Hem?
Approve.
Tim?
Approved.
Let's see. Fayez?
Approved.
Elise?
Approved.
Justin?
Approved.
Tom?
Approve.
Excellent. I think that's everyone. Just trying to make sure. I do believe that's everyone. Okay, the minutes are approved. The next thing on our agenda, Sean, were there any items that you wanted to follow up from the last meeting?
Nothing from me.
Okay.
It looks like there's a couple of guests here who might want to,
Yes.
I mean, besides our presenters, but I believe we have one of the TCAC members who will be appointed next week.
Excellent. And Sean, do you want to introduce them?
Sure. Chris, are you there?
Chris, I'm not sure if the other Chris is heading here or not.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Chris's on the TCAC next year.
Oh boy.
Develop a system.
Yeah, this is Chris Hadinger, and this will be my last meeting. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So besides Chris Sojin, are there other new TCAC members starting January 1st? See a couple of phone numbers there, so I'm just not sure who that is.
The 314 area code is the public number.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, Chris. We're glad that you were able to join us tonight. Then the next item on the agenda is the new city facilities planning. I think Kenny and Nadine, you've joined us.
We have, and so has, hello Kate, and hello committee.
Hello.
Kirsten Haughey is also here from Kearns and West, our communications consulting firm. And we are really excited to share this project with you. You're going to hear a lot tonight, but you should know that this project is still very much in kind of feasibility testing and exploration. We are preparing to go to council with a big update on January the 19th. And that'll be something of an unveiling, I think, for a lot of people. So we wanted to get to the committee's especially yours, because this is such an important piece of property for the downtown, as soon as we could, and I think we are ready. So with that, if we can launch into this, Kirsten, are you going to kick this off, and are you also going to advance the slides tonight?
Yes, I will. Thanks so much, Kenny. And this is Kirsten Haughey. I am a communications consultant working with Kenny and Nadine for this project. So as Kenny shared, really excited to be here with you today to kind of get an early preview of where the project's at, and also to share some of the thinking behind our upcoming public engagement efforts and to hear your thoughts and feedback. So thanks again for inviting us to join. And for our presentation today, we'll share some background about the City Facilities Consolidation Project, a little bit about the need, and what are the potential opportunities, especially as it relates to the downtown core, and why we're focusing on taking action now. And then we'll spend the remainder of the time talking about community engagement, what's been done to date, and upcoming ways to get involved, and specifically for your committee, ways to get engaged and potentially assist. And then allow hopefully around 20 to 25 minutes at the end for Q&A and discussion. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Nadine Robinson, the Central Services Director, to share the project overview.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nadine, and facilities is part of my department, and so I was invited to be part of this project, and I'm excited to be able to share some of that information about the necessity for the project. So as a result of the City of Tigard's growth over time, the city's facing decisions about how to best invest in its infrastructure. We have a strong strategic plan to make Tigard more walkable, inclusive, and healthy, and all of our investments need to relate back to the strategic plan. We feel like this project is really going to support that. Go ahead, Kirsten. So the project will relocate Tigard Public Works out of the downtown and use the current public works site at Hall and Burnham for an expanded city hall and police station. The project would also bring more parking and housing into the downtown. It would actually open up potentially 9.5 acres for redevelopment. We would also potentially relocate and enhance the Tigard Skate Park. Next slide, please. So we've identified 3 phases for the project. The first was whether the city should look at individual department needs or to take a broader look at the benefits of consolidating most services into one building. We gave a presentation to council in February and were given the green light to continue looking at the feasibility of the project. So we're now in phase 2, which includes determining the building size needed, developing a financial assessment that compares the economic costs of remaining in our current buildings over the next 20 years versus occupying new facilities. And the redevelopment team will be doing that presentation for council in January. That's the one that Kenny had just mentioned. So with council's approval, we'll move into phase 3, which will include bringing the project to Tigard residents and asking for their input and support. Next slide, please. So why is the project necessary? So our city buildings are aging. The buildings were built back in the mid-1980s. They need extensive, expensive repairs. Facilities also don't meet the current seismic standards, which could inhibit the city's ability to maintain operations and respond in an emergency. Tigard's downtown facilities are in fair to poor condition, but with each year that we aren't able to fund those needed repairs, those needs just continue to grow. So with that, in combination with them being at moderate to substantial damage risk in the event of a seismic event, we feel like moving forward now would be the right answer for safe operations. Next slide, please. So the city's evaluating the best solution for Tigard. Again, Johnson Economics has been helping us with our financial assessment, and they right now are recommending that the best solution would be to replace our buildings individually excuse me, to replace our buildings rather than individually go out and look at them. So based on current findings, they estimate that the savings to Tigard residents over the next 20 years could be as much as $60 to $78 million. And that, of course, would be accounting for additional revenue for sales and redevelopment of properties. The net cost to the city for constructing new facilities is $123 million compared to $200 million to maintain our current buildings. Next slide, please. So project funding. The project can be funded without raising property taxes. Voters would be asked to approve an extension of the current property tax rates in the November 2021 election. Additional financing would also be provided through a combination of utility rate increases, special revenue funds, the photo enforcement revenues, tax increment financing, and land sale proceeds. Next slide, please. So why now? Well, COVID's taught us that the unexpected can happen and we need to be prepared. In a situation like this, we've also learned that it goes beyond the ability of individuals to deal with those unexpected things. So the city is ready to make investments in the resiliency of its future. We know by taking action now, we'll be able to take advantage of lower construction costs and avoid ongoing repairs of our current facilities. Plus, residents will also see cost savings. We can replace the facilities without raising property taxes if the replacement is completed by 2025. So I'm going to pass it on to Kenny to talk about what the potential opportunities are.
Thank you, Nadine. Well, most of you have heard from me over the years talk about community development, specifically in the downtown. And we've pulled some things off, and downtown is a different place than when we started the first tax increment district, and even from when I started 8 years ago. But you know, the largest landowner downtown is the city of Tigard, and we're not being very responsible as a landowner for making the downtown that we've already declared we want to see in all of our plans. The 13.5 acres that we're sitting on today, some of it is not redevelopable, it's close to the creek, but a lot of it is. And as you well know, it's mostly surface parking and very, very low density office buildings that don't add to the street life at all and don't add to the local sort of commercial activity. Doesn't do much of anything, and that's fine. It's not a criticism, because in 1982 or whenever these buildings were dreamed up and built, downtown was a very different kind of place, but it's changing. And we have demonstrated with your help that downtown Tigard is a very attractive place for housing if we could figure out where to put more housing. We've calculated the potential for more than 500 new units on the leftover land if we could pull off this project. You all, I don't need to tell you, you know that housing would stimulate additional downtown development. Because we don't just need housing, we need more shopping, we need more boutiques, we need just more interesting things to do downtown. We also need additional parking, and we're going to try to deal with that issue in this project as well. And if you can imagine that we've already got a lot of momentum on Main Street, creating a district at the other end of Burnham would really create this, you know, it's kind of called a barbell effect, where you can imagine Burnham Street just filling in with Universal Plaza in the middle of all that. So just as a redevelopment strategy, which is partly where this idea sprang from, this makes a lot of sense if we want to improve downtown Tigard, and we do, and it's a council goal. Next slide, Kirsten. The buildings themselves, the ones downtown, there are two. There's an office building, probably in the 5 to 6 story range, would have a community room on the ground floor, and it'd be a new city hall. So there would be some community benefit in the building, and the parking structure, of course, would be a huge benefit. It would be shared between the office workers, maybe some housing that could be built on the Public Works site if we can make room for it. And then, of course, that's a great shared opportunity for downtown visitors. And I should also mention that we need tax increment to keep downtown growing and going. And you know about the substantial amendment that's going to be before the voters in May. This would be an opportunity to generate more tax increment that we could continue to invest in our downtown projects. Right now, of course, there's no tax being collected off of that 13 acres. Nadine touched on this. Another benefit, frankly, this isn't so much about community development. This is just basic government services. We have an emergency operations center right now that is in a building that has been deemed seismically unsafe to occupy after an event. In real basic terms, we're in trouble if we do have a seismic event, and we're not sure that our police operations or our public works operations are going to be able to get out of their buildings and serve the city. We're trying to address that. And the police have issues that go well beyond that. I don't know if you caught what Nadine was saying about our police station, but it was designed in the 1980s for a police force of about 30 people. I think at this point that department has 130 people in it. And there is no room in that building for evidence. There is no room in that building for our female officers to change in and out of their uniforms. There is no room for storage. We have all kinds of space issues and also just issues with the building itself. And that's a real drag on the police department. That's a drag on recruiting and retaining police officers, and allowing for that department to continue to improve its response times and be an efficient and modern department. So that group in particular is up against some challenges. And they have been planning for a new facility for a long time. And one of the things we're trying to do with this project is not just build a new police station, because if we just build a new police station, all of the things we're talking about, all these benefits are not going to accrue to the city or the downtown. Because we don't just have a police station problem. We have a problem with the way we're using our land resource downtown. Next slide. This business case will be coming out later this month, maybe towards the end of December. And I've been looking at drafts of it. The bottom line is that it is expensive, of course, to build new buildings. Fortunately, we don't have to acquire property downtown. We are land rich. We do have to acquire property for the public works move, and that's expensive. But what the economist is telling us is that even if you factor in the cost of maintaining a new building over 20 years, and if you factor in the debt service, it is still less expensive over 20 years to do that than it would be to try to come up with an equivalent amount of space in our existing situation, which would mean leasing more space and continuing to try to keep these buildings up on their repair and maintenance. A huge benefit of the project is to be able to kind of have a new building that would have a lot of value at the end of 20 years left, whereas these buildings are nearing the end of their useful lives. And as we mentioned, the tax returns and the land sale proceeds, those all kind of tilt the equation toward making this kind of investment. And we've already talked about all the other bullet points on this slide, so we can go to the next one. Kirsten, you want me to talk about this slide, or did you want to wrap us up?
Kenny, if you go ahead and talk about this one, I'll transition and talk about community engagement after this.
Okay. So let's see what to say about this one. Some critical milestones. The big ones, one big one is coming up in January. We're going to do a feasibility report to the council next month and seek their continued support for the project. And then if you can sort of drag your eyes down to June of 2021, that would be the third and final feasibility report. And that's the one where council would decide whether or not to most likely put the financing wheels in motion. So one of the decisions in June will be, should we try to go to the voters in November with a bond for this new City Hall project? Should we close on property for moving public works? Should we sell revenue bonds to be able to fund the public works design and construction project? The vote itself on the City Hall project would happen in November. And we are doing all of this on this schedule to try to get public works under construction in May of 2022, because we really need them to be off that site in the summer of 2023. Why? Because we need to start construction of the new City Hall in the summer of 2023 so that we can be in that building in 2025. And the reason those dates are so critical and the reason the schedule is so critical is the point that Nadine made back toward the beginning of the presentation. The costs of construction are escalating so fast in this region that on a project of this magnitude, I mean, literally every 6-month delay adds millions and millions of dollars to the cost. And, you know, these elections only come around twice a year. So if we can get in by 2025, we can do it according to the financing plan that we've described for you tonight. If we decide to wait, or the council decides to postpone, or we miss the election, or it doesn't pass, I'm not sure that the project can happen, frankly, or it definitely can't happen with the same level of impact to the public. Right now, the main impact to the public is utility rates, that several of which have maybe already been raised. A few more would also have to be raised. I think it amounts to something like $10 a month, roundabout, based on the numbers that we're using today. I would say that's a pretty nominal impact on the public's pocketbook for a project of this magnitude, but that's only the case if we can stick to the budget that we've created and the scope that we're imagining and this schedule.
Great. And Kenny, anything to add about the future redevelopment before we transition to community engagement?
Yeah, well, so you're looking at that zoomed in part of the drawing that you guys have seen many times. If right in the middle of that drawing, you see a little gable roof, a little gray gable roof, that's the TVF&R site. And I just think what's striking about this is that even when this drawing was made, and it's been years now, maybe a decade or more, you see buildings where today we have parking lots. You see buildings fronting the park. You see buildings everywhere. This is the vision for downtown. So we're not describing anything tonight that hasn't been envisioned for downtown for a long time. Now, how would we actually build out the City Hall property, that 9 acres that we're currently on? If this all goes, we would have an RFP to bring a master developer in, or I should say a master plan in a couple of years. And your committee and people who are interested in this stuff would certainly have a chance to help craft the master plan for what we would want to attract to this site. And I'll just tell you right now, it's going to have a lot of housing, and it's going to have a lot of affordable housing. That's the key, as we've talked about several times in this committee, to having a really vibrant downtown. Kirsten, do I have more? No.
Nope. That's it. Thanks so much, Kenny. Well, thanks again, everyone, for allowing us time on your agenda today. And as you can hear from Nadine and Kenny's presentation, this has the potential to be a really transformative project for Tigard. And as such, hearing from community members about values and priorities for this effort moving forward will be really important. So just to share a little bit about where we've been so far, we've conducted a series of activities to really inform our approach moving forward, to begin to hear what are some of the goals from community members, some of the key considerations and guiding principles we should apply to our community engagement efforts. So through that, kickoff meetings with city staff and key interviews with staff, as well as some community stakeholders, and a focus group meeting with some Tigard business leaders and downtown interests, We've developed a strategic communications and engagement plan, and as part of that, we're beginning this early engagement prior to the January council meeting by briefing some of the Tigard citizen committees and beginning to develop some of our communications and outreach tools, which you'll see more of in January, such as a video and program website and additional materials to help share the word about this project and convey opportunities for public input. So a little bit more about that, about what you can expect to hear more about next month is, again, we really want to hear from community voices to plan a solution that works for Tigard. And so what that looks like is beginning in mid-January, we'll have a series of opportunities both to provide input as well as to learn more about this effort. So that will include opportunity to respond to key questions posted online at the Your Tigard engagement site, to think about how best to plan the new City Hall building. So hearing about community needs and priorities related to that, as well as potential other questions to inform the development of the project. We'll have information and regular updates about opportunities housed on the city's website, and use the city's communications channels through social media, podcasts, broader media engagement, and the weekly e-newsletter to get the word out. And in addition to that, we are assuming we'll likely still be in a virtual environment. So hosting more of these types of meetings, talking with people virtually to share about this effort and gather feedback. And again, if things change, we hope to be more visible out in the community at activities like the Tigard Farmers Market or other in-person briefings. So we're here today to hear from you input about how we move forward and engage the community. We'd love to hear if there are any suggestions for specific channels or best ways we can both inform and engage community members. If there's interest about helping to spread the word about the project, we'd love to hear that as well. And any other opportunities for communications and engagement, as well as, flagging any potential challenges or opportunities or concerns would be helpful as well. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions and comments from the commission. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions that people would like to ask?
Elise has her hand up.
Elise?
Hello, hi, Kenny.
Hi, Elise.
Hi. I have a question. Obviously, our police station is in dire need, and that seems to be the #1 priority in, I would think, in staged construction plans. So do you have a staging schedule idea, if the plan goes through, of how you would build out?
Well, I guess the answer is no, because the idea of this project is to take care of everybody's needs at once. So imagine across the street a 6-story building, the first story of which is town hall or a city council chambers, and a much larger police station. So I guess the short answer is, well, let me back up. The police station has dire needs, but actually the most seismically dangerous building is Public Works. And the biggest impact to the downtown's future is the Public Works site, because that's the largest piece. And Public Works has a facilities plan of their own to try to move. So when we talk about that first phase of feasibility, what we were trying to say to the council, and what the council agreed with, was if we try to just replace these buildings one at a time, we're never going to get there. And it is much smarter for us, and we're also going to continue to build low slung 1- and 2-story buildings, likely in the downtown. maybe even replace them in place. And that doesn't make sense for our plans. So I guess to be concise, the first decision was, let's try to get everybody into one building, including the police, and let's build that all at once in 2023. So they would be taken care of as part of this project. But so too would the crowding in City Hall, would the crowding in court, and would the seismic issues and all the issues for Public Works.
So basically, Public Works would be built out 6 stories and hopefully enclose everybody in the space.
Public Works operations would move
Correct.
out of the downtown.
Yeah.
And then, yes, this 5 or 6 story building would take care of everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ryan, I think you have a question.
Yeah, Kenny, thanks for the great presentation. My question's about, if this goes to the voters in November of next year, I'm curious how fleshed out the design of the new City Hall civic site would be, and how, what will voters have to see, to look at, to kind of base their decision on? I know that I would think the design would be pretty preliminary at that point, but sort of a balance between making it compelling and, just not being that far along in the process. So just curious about that.
No, you've nailed it. That's exactly right. And one of the things we're going to be asking the council for on January 19th, and you all are welcome to come and testify, is a little more money for our architects to be able to develop the building plans, just to a point where we have some architecture. We are not going to go too far until we know that we have money to do this thing. But as you're mentioning, we also need to give the public some idea about this building. How big is it? Where would it be? Maybe we would even put something out there that showed architectural features and style, although that's always difficult. But the firm that we're working with, DLR Group, they've done this kind of project all over the country, and we're working with a group that specializes in municipal projects. And so they have a really good feel for how these processes work well and how much you should show. But to answer your question, we would have enough that the community would be able to understand what the building was shaping up to be, but we wouldn't have much more than that.
So
and
if
we have a public process too.
Yeah. So, the bird's eye view is, one we saw earlier in the presentation, and I think it's so intuitive for people, and, it doesn't require the kind of architectural detailing that you'd get to later, but maybe it could show relationships between downtown, Fan Oak Creek Park, and the trail, and other, important attributes in a way like that. That view to me is so easy for people to digest in terms of what the plan is, so maybe it's more of a site plan type of scale for that. I don't know, just a thought.
We're gonna have some of that in January. I don't know. I haven't seen what they're working on, so I don't know if it's quite site plan or if it's still very diagrammatic. And I don't know how much they're going to draw for January now for sort of a public audience. But very quickly, if we are doing this project, we're going to get that view that you're talking about. Because I agree with you. I hope it's intuitive. I hope people can immediately understand, yeah, what an amazing place to build apartments. How nice.
Thanks.
Other questions and comments? Fayez?
Hi, Kenny.
Hi.
Just a quick question. I'm worried about is the proposal maybe of 6-story building. that will be in a way too large for the size of the downtown or the building surrounding that area of the 13 acre, because all of them seem to be, or most of them is single-story building. So it just a scale of the property or the buildings kind of maybe not work out with it. If there's any other option of sitting these buildings back and making the front maybe a small commercial, even, you know, a couple stories or whatever. So step it down to the street. So that's, to me, to propose to the public something that you're gonna modify later quite a bit. So it could be kind of like misleading in a way that, you know, showing something completely different than what you're really gonna end up with.
Yeah, thanks, Faz. That's an interesting point. The only tall building, it might be 5 stories, we don't know, and there might be a step back. It's not been designed at all. But the only building like that would be this new office building. The housing would most likely, especially on the City Hall side, would be more like 4. I mean, Atwell, I think, Sean, Atwell is 4, the over 1, I think.
It's 4.
Yeah. So Fayez, I don't know how you feel about Atwell off Main. Those are huge buildings, but I don't feel like they're real imposing. The City Hall site that we're talking about now, Public Works, that would be a very big change. You're right about that. And I think the way that we need good designers, both to make sure that we're not building something that's imposing and ugly, but also that we're sharing information in a design process in a way that people will feel good about.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm looking basically for a master plan and that at least a massing diagram to show what are the possibility for that building or the massing, how they're gonna sit on the site. And if you have any public parts of that building, so you maybe bring it up to the street. However, maybe the bulk of the building will be sitting back to provide the services, especially for the police station, if they have archive or evidence or whatever it is. Those really do not need to be at the edge or the front of the street, so it could be set back. So in a way, it just needs a lot of thought, and that was my kind of, let's say, take on it. And I thought, you know, like, it's the idea is not cooked well so far, you know, like there's no really, the idea is just to build a building, but nothing else, you know, nothing's been designed or thought about yet.
Can I jump in, Council President Goodhouse?
Sorry?
One thing too is that we have buildings, we have the Ava Roastery going in, but we also, the thought of the next 10, 15, 20 years in Tigard will be bigger buildings. So the City Hall might be a bigger building, but then the rest of it, as it gets developed or built out, will probably follow it. So it may stand out at first, but the plan going forward, unless I'm wrong, Kenny, we'll see more buildings. So it might stand out at first, but then that'll attract more buildings like that, where we'll have mixed use on the bottom. We'll have 4 or 5 story buildings throughout that area. There's a lot of that property that can be redeveloped, and there's a lot of property owners in that area that are counting on in the next 10 years probably for that to be built out. So that'll kind of be a catalyst for the rest of the development to build around.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know, Sean, if you've shared, I would assume you've shared the City Center Futures report, and there are drawings of the Burnham corridor in that report that show just what Council President Goodhouse described. And hopefully the committee likes that. But position is hard. And for a while, it is a little, you know, disjointed and a little bit inconsistent. And the other thing I wanted to mention, just in response to Fayez, is that massing and stacking and site work is happening now. So when we are in front of council on the 19th, we, at least on the Public Works site, not on the City Hall site, we will have some of that information to share.
And
That's great.
And Elise, I think you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Also, Kenny, you were talking about affordable housing in the downtown, but we're talking about attempting to raise taxes, property taxes as well. Are we going to be doing affordable housing to low income? Are we going to do housing like on Hunziker, where we have a market rate affordable housing, or is it going to be a mixed income, mixed use type structure?
So it's a little early for me to give you a definitive answer on that, Elise, but what we are starting with is a 30% target for regulated affordable. That would be 60% and medium family income and below. So, and
that'd be wonderful.
Yes, and we're modeling our land sale with that assumption so that we're not, because when we do that, we depress a little bit the market value of the land. But it's so important, and it's important we get that commitment made early so that we don't end up needing to sell it at market and seeing only market housing developed there. So that's where we're starting, and we feel like 30% is aggressive, but also fair and necessary.
Yeah. One more question. I'm sorry. Have talks with local property owners on Burnham that are adjacent to city properties, including the storage unit buildings. Has any of those taken place where people might be interested in selling in the future?
Nadine, do you want to take that one? Did you hear the question, Nadine?
I did hear the question, and we have approached some of the property owners in the area about purchasing land, not specifically the storage area, but the embroidery shop and also the site on Burnham and Ash. And at this point, we haven't been able to come to any agreement around either of those properties.
Sure. I was just naming that property in particular because of the size of the property and the more rundown condition of the facility versus some of the other buildings.
I think that we're not gonna talk about this very much, but
sure.
with your committee, I feel like I can share this. What's gonna change that property is this project. Once housing gets built on this site, that property is going to be so valuable for housing development that those owners are going to want to sell. That's how this works. That's why it's catalytic.
Thank you.
Just showing the image from the downtown vision. We shared it last month or the month before, but just to remind everybody what we're looking at, this is a view of Burnham looking towards Main Street.
Purely illustrative, but that's the urban quality that Council President Goodhouse was describing.
Any other questions, comments?
Chair Rogers, haven't heard from you.
I'm sorry?
I said we haven't heard from you, Chair Rogers. All of us on the commission have been sort of thinking about this for the last several months, and having been on the bond and levy task force over the last couple of years, of course, I have had the opportunity to think about it even longer. And, I do think that it makes the best use of the land that the city owns. And I do agree with you that it will become the catalyst to transform Burnham. We need a catalyst because I don't think by itself, I think it's going to take a very, very long time for anything to happen on Burnham without something like this cornerstone project. I am concerned mostly because of the current economic circumstances and the economic circumstances that we're probably going to be in for the next couple of years as a result of
the pandemic, people losing their jobs, people losing their housing. And so being able to put together a package of financing that is appealing to citizens and taxpayers without unduly burdening them is going to be critical to the success of this project. You know, as you said, I think we get one shot at this, and we need to put in place a communication plan that educates citizens and helps them understand what the impact will be to them personally. So that's my biggest concern, is that it needs to be something that is sustainable by the taxpayers.
Understood.
Joe, did you have a comment, a question?
Yes, I was just going to ask Kirsten if she wouldn't mind sending the presentation to me so I can keep a copy for the record.
Great, thank you.
Joe P at tigard-or.gov. There we go.
Okay, great. No problem. Thank you.
Renat?
Oh, yes, I just had a question. I think I heard during the presentation that there is currently property tax levy that's going to be going away and that this will replace it. So in essence, the property tax rate wouldn't change just because of this project. But what is the piece that's going away? And then what kind of messaging are we going to be having with replacing it? Because really, I mean, it's a good message that nothing's changing, but of course, whenever somebody sees their tax bill going down, they would rather have it go down than even stay the same. So it's kind of a two-part question.
Okay, that's a good one. And you're absolutely right. The first part of the question is what is going away. So we have your property tax is a levy portion and a bond portion, and the bond, general obligation bonds that we are collecting taxes on. Right now there are two, and they've been refinanced into a single borrowing. One was for the parks bond that was passed. It's been many years now that we're still paying off, and the other is for the library bond. When we built the library building, there was a general obligation bond that was raised for that. Those two have been refinanced, and they would end up going away. I can't remember the exact year. I think it is a few years out, maybe 2025 or something like that. If we don't do this project and we don't sell any other bonds, people's tax rates would drop. You were correct about that. That rarely happens, I will say. But it is a fair point that we didn't say, you know, normally these things aren't done without raising taxes. This project, these two projects together at the moment, we think all in are coming in somewhere in the $150 million range. And it takes a big layer cake of different financing sources to be able to raise that kind of money in a place as small as Tigard. And I will say that the substantial amendment that Sean is working on and that you've heard about is part of that layer cake. And I hope it passes in May. So the best we can say here is that we could continue to keep rates, the bond rate, where it is by extending it. Basically, we'd be reselling and raising another $60 million into this project. That would not raise anybody's rate. But you're correct. If this doesn't happen and those bonds get paid off, people's property taxes could drop if the council didn't decide to do anything else.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I feel like we're probably over time or getting pretty close. It's really great to be with the committee again. I think of this committee as maybe being, of all the committees, I think this is the committee that perhaps has the greatest stake in this project. Just insofar as the outcome from this project is going to be most felt by your mission and vision as compared to any other committee we have. So if you as the stewards of our downtown, we figured would be the most interested in understanding what was going on here and maybe trying to help make it happen. Because we're going to need the whole community. Like we said, that this third and final phase, if we get there, which is between January and June, is when the communications opens up to the whole community and lots of social media on the project, lots of conversations in public, lots of videos, lots of process. And we're going to need champions in the community to help us make this happen if we want it to happen. So thanks for your time tonight. Thanks for any help that you can give us.
And on January 19th, you were offering the opportunity for any or all of us to come and present testimony at the city council meeting.
I guess I should ask Council President Goodhouse what he thinks. I don't know if I was out of order there. I mean, a letter might be fine. I just think it's a meeting at which the council is going to be asked, shall we continue or shall we stop? And if we continue, we need some help. And I think hearing from the council always likes to hear from their citizen committees. And I think they would appreciate hearing from you. I don't know the best format for that. Maybe we can get back to you on that.
If you would, that would be appreciated. I
think Council President Goodhouse, I think agreed with that second part, Kenny, is that the help's going to be appreciated. I don't know necessarily about the support. A letter would be great, but I think really going forward, it's going to be the help that's going to be needed to get the message out and why we're doing it, and what's important, and what the overall vision is.
I'll circle back with Sean and Joe, and yeah, I think part of the problem that night is the time. We don't have that much time on that agenda to hear from everybody. So maybe a letter would be just fine, and I can work with the committee staff on getting that going.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Okay.
That does it for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, Scott,
Thank you.
One last question, Scott. Oh, no. Okay.
I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, but I had to call in on the phone. For some reason, I can't get the audio on the conference.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, that's all. I didn't have a question concerned with that, but yeah, I was on and I didn't hear anything, and I did try speaking through the computer, and then I just called in. So I am here.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
No worries. Semper Gumby.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, TCAC.
Yes.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Next on the agenda is Main Street, Green Street, Phase 2. Andy, Christina.
Hi, good evening. My name's Andy Newberry. I'm an engineer with the city and the project manager for Main Street Phase 2. I also have on the call Christy. She's an engineering project coordinator who's been helping me out on this project. I just want to say just a quick thank you for your time this evening as I give you a quick update on our work for this project. Since I last met with the TCAC back in January of this year, we've had a few changes to the project schedule, specifically due to COVID. We were hoping to begin our business and public outreach shortly after the pandemic began, but we knew that businesses had more important concerns related to the pandemic to work through. So we held off on those efforts since we wanted their input on the design of the project. Now that some time has passed and to keep the project moving forward, we are now starting those efforts again. We have recently met with the TDA and to go over the schedule and concept plan. And we recently stopped by each business along phase 2 to give them a project update. We also recently sent out a survey to the business owners asking about their thoughts on the concept plan, concerns that they may have, or other requests to help them to mitigate impacts during construction. One of the main takeaways that we got from those meetings with the TDA and business owners is to begin supporting the businesses now, so prior to construction and not just during construction. So we want to start helping those businesses now, and there's ways that we're looking at doing that. Another takeaway is during construction is just maintaining access during those businesses and having appropriate signage so people know where to go, know where to park to get to those businesses. We have a public outreach consultant that is working with us on this project, and along with some city staff are currently reviewing what efforts that we can begin now to support businesses along Main Street, and we'll be presenting that to the TDA shortly. So a little bit back to the schedule. Again, we've had some delays due to COVID. So our current schedule is we are looking to place the project out for construction bid sometime later next spring. So I'm thinking probably May of 2021. And with that, construction would be starting that summer, approximately July of 2021. And we still expect, we're estimating a year timeline to get that construction done, but bulk of that work is going to happen next summer. So July through your October timeframe. So that's a little update on the schedule. Next, I want to talk about quickly the concept plan that we've generated, and that's shown on the screen here. The theme here is phase 2 is going to look a lot like phase 1. So you're going to have brand new sidewalks, brand new pavement, street lighting, enhanced pedestrian crosswalks, sidewalk amenities, and a lot more landscaping. So you kind of see that on the sketch. All that green hatching there is landscaped areas. So starting on the top there, we're going to go from left to right. So the project extents basically goes from Commercial Street to Scoffins, and this is the last section of Main Street to get these type of improvements. Near the railroad tracks, there's an existing concrete island. That's where we're going to be taking most of that concrete out and placing landscaping there. As you move to Commercial Street there, that's where you see those enhanced pedestrian crosswalks. Right now, it's just some striping. So these enhanced pedestrian crosswalks include concrete. It's just more visible for the pedestrian. Also, you'll notice that the curb bumps out into the roadway. And what that does is reduces the length that the pedestrian needs to cross. So there's less length of the street to cross. And that just helps with pedestrian safety. So, and then moving further to the right, we're keeping the same type of parking layout, head-in angled parking. Moving further, you'll see a TriMet symbol. So what we've done is we've had multiple meetings just before the pandemic began with TriMet, and what we came up with is some consolidated bus stops. So we're basically taking 4 bus stops, turning it into 2. And these bus stop locations will create like a mini plaza where we'll have some benches, some covered bus shelter, and that's going to be on both sides of the street as indicated on the drawing. We'll also be adding another pedestrian, we call it a mid-block crossing, crosswalk there. And this is going to be similar to the one that's on Main Street near Fanta Creek, which is going to have the flashing signs on it. Nice. Moving to the bottom there, again, more parallel parking. What we ended up doing is we tried to maintain the existing parking spots that are out there right now, and we end up having just one reduction with this layout. And then once we get to Scoffins, again, enhanced pedestrian crossings. And then at Scoffins, we've added a mid-block refuge island there, again, for pedestrian safety. So what we're doing now, we have our design consultant, Century West, who is putting together our plans for this project. They're currently working on a 30% design set, and they'll be submitting that to the city probably by next week, and we'll get comments back to them so they can continue that design so we have bid documents done next spring. So that's kind of a brief overview of our project. I'm going to ask Christy. Christy, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
I think you pretty much covered it, but if anybody has questions, Andy and I can answer them.
Ryan and then Elise.
Thanks a lot for sharing this with us. So by landscaped areas, I'm assuming we're talking about stormwater facilities similar to those that are at the other end of Main Street?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, except for the ones in the median islands, right? Those are just going to be regular landscape strips.
Yeah, it's going to be a mixture. Yes, correct.
They're not going to be the deep ones in the center island.
So are they going to be treating stormwater at all?
The center islands?
Yeah.
No, but they do mean it's less pervious surface, so there's less area we have to treat then.
So what do you envision planting in those median strips?
I know at least for the railroad, it has to be something short, so it won't impact visibility for trains. As far as details, that's going to be a landscape architect who picks the specific plants. I'm not a gardener.
I wasn't thinking about plants, sorry. I was just curious about whether, because sometimes these median strips end up kind of with too much soil on them and they drain off and there's actually a negative stormwater effect from them because they're not really absorbing anything. So I'm just curious if they're going to be like sort of like below the curb grade to collect any water or shedding water onto the road.
Well, I think that's a good point that we put up, and we haven't got that far into design, but I would imagine that we can probably keep this soil below the curb and add an area drain there. So anything that lands in there can get into an area drain, which will drain to our storm system. So, and that's the only spot. The rest of the planters that you see is just the center median in Main Street that's right next to the railroad tracks, and the one on Scoffins. Those are going to be mainly not for stormwater treatment, but the rest of them that you see there are going to be similar to the one in similar to the planters in phase 1 that do that type of treatment that we need to do to meet clean water services standards.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Elise, and then
Hi.
Ken.
Hi, Andy. I've got a couple of questions. Okay, the one median on Scoffin Street there at the crosswalk where I can see a curved, it looks like a curb. That's an island for pedestrians. There are a lot of freight trucks that are turning those corners to go up to local businesses. Is that going to interfere with the freight truck's turn? Because it looks pretty tight right there.
Yes, no, that's a very good question. We had our consultant look at truck turning templates. So we looked at basically like a 53-foot long trailer on a typical semi truck, and they've modeled that where that turning movement is not impacted. So that's a turn that they can make. But yeah, that's a good question. Yes.
Sure. And then my second question was, according to the legend, you have concrete adjacent to the TriMet locations. Is that supposed to be like permeable concrete in the street? Or why is it show concrete there versus asphalt next to the TriMet station? What is the purpose?
Yeah, that's a TriMet standard. So that's where the buses stop. And the buses over time might wear out the asphalt because they're sitting there, they're always stopping, going. So that's just something that's going to help prevent future pavement failures. So that is going to be a section of concrete there in the roadway.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And then the last time we did Main Street, Green Street, we hit the recession, which took us 5 years to come out of, and the businesses were really struggling. So, and it was a big, deep Main Street, Green Street down near the creek with the big, heavy water retention and et cetera building going on. And I understood that we weren't going to have to worry about the big, deep water retention beds on this portion of Main Street. So, not that I don't want the stormwater to be treated or anything like that. That's not an issue. It's just, I understood we wouldn't have to dig so deep and we wouldn't have to disrupt so many utilities in this portion of the street like we did down at the other end of the street.
Yeah, we don't expect, so the plans that I've shown now, there's very few utility impacts. I mean, if anything, it'd be, your franchise or PG, Ziply, Comcast. But most of these, we don't have those type of impacts, specifically like city infrastructure where we should be fine. So, but yeah, we don't envision these really deep. I mean, it's just probably, from top of curb or to top of facility, it might be a foot and a half at most. So that's what we're expecting for this project.
Okay, and my last question, I apologize to everybody else. I know that the city is continuing to upgrade their drainage systems of water lines and things like that. Are there any plans in the city books for this portion of Main Street for replacement of anything that could be going on at the same time we're digging up this street?
Yeah, another good question. We actually have some work going on, actually probably starting in about an hour and a half. They'll be wrapping up there. So we have some old sewer lines in Main Street, and these are lines that were built in the 1950s. And what we're doing is, instead of digging out and replacing them, we're putting in, it's called a cured in place pipe, which is a resin liner that goes in there and improves the life of that pipe. Also, we have some old cast iron water line in Main Street, and cast iron over time, it gets brittle and it breaks. And we've had those type of failures in the city recently. So as part of this project, we're going to be replacing the water line that's in Main Street with a new ductile iron pipe. So those are the two city facilities, underground utilities that we'll be replacing with this project, correct?
Aren't we doing at least part of a new storm pipe too, Andy?
Yeah, that's just because of the alignment of the street. We're also, there's going to be a new storm system. Again, that's kind of get it more in the center line of the street. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pam and then Renat.
Yeah, my question was related to the green spaces there. Are those the minimum required to make it a green street? Or the reason I'm asking this is even though we're losing only one parking spot, I would expect that with the new development, we'll need more parking spaces rather than one less, actually. So is that the question was, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so no, you're right. I'll take it, Christy. Yeah, you're right on that. So we've tried to maximize those areas that we can treat with these green facilities, but we're not able to treat all of it. So there's going to be an underground filter, and this is something the city doesn't like to use because it takes a lot of maintenance and a lot of money to take care of these. So it's going to be an underground treatment. It's basically these filters that treat the water to meet the standards of clean water services. So yeah, there's still going to be a vault, underground vault that houses these treatment filters, just due to the fact that we can't treat all the water. So you're correct.
And I will say that none of the green spaces are taking away parking. We put the green planter areas in areas where we can't put parking in intersections for safety reasons. And largely the reason we lost one space is to do those curb bump outs for pedestrian safety. So we're trading one parking space for significant safety impacts. And then the landscape planters went in everywhere where we can't put parking.
Thanks.
Renat, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question about the landscape to median that I think that's Scoggins, where the McDonald's is. I think that street is awfully narrow already. Like, are they going to make the street wider in order to have the median, or will it fit?
So there's currently a center turn lane, and we're taking away that center lane to put the median in. But the median will end before the driveway to McDonald's. So you'll still be able to turn left off of the street into the Rite Aid parking lot, or into coming the other direction into the bank parking lot. It's just taking an existing lane that doesn't get used enough as far as volumes go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So now there's going to be head-in parking on both sides. Currently, it's just on the north side of the street, correct?
Correct.
Ryan, did you have another question?
No, I apologize.
No worries. Elise?
Thank you. I have one more comment. I just wanted to say thank you, because I know for a fact that the traffic from the McDonald's stop all the way down to Commercial, sometimes people have a tendency to accelerate. And I think the narrowing of the streets will help slow down, as well as the bulb outs. And are any of the crosswalks going to be raised, like a speed bump idea, or not?
We're not planning any raised crosswalks, but that center crosswalk at the bus plaza will have the flashing beacons. And all of them will have the kind of the stamped concrete look for the crosswalks to bring more attention to them.
All right. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Okay.
All right, well, thanks.
You
Thanks for your
mentioned
time,
that
everyone.
you just one quick question. One quick question. You mentioned that this would probably go out for bid in spring of 2021. When are you thinking you would begin construction, and when do you think construction would be completed?
Yeah, so we're looking at July, probably a start date next summer. And then we're estimating a year, just to let folks know. It's not going to be any more than that. So 2022, early summertime is when we expect it to be done. It could be done sooner, but that's the current schedule.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Next on the agenda, Sean, you're going to talk us through the city center plan, the substantial amendment.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So tonight is an action item. We are going to ask the TCAC to consider recommendation of the City Center Urban Renewal Plan, the substantial amendment that we've talked about for a couple meetings. And I'll go through this fairly quickly so we have time for questions at the end. There was the plan in your packet, which, not that useful in terms, it's just showing what's changing in the current plan, although it did list the new projects and new descriptions of the projects. And then there's the report accompanying the plan, which has a lot of financial information about impacts on the other taxing districts. So if you have any questions on that, we can address that at the end. So this, again, is an image from the City Center Futures Downtown Vision. So real quick, talk about what we've accomplished since 2006. Just some statistics. There's been nearly $50 million of private investment, which is 3 times the investment in the 12 years preceding urban renewal. There's been a 64% increase in the assessed value in city center between 2006, 2019, and that's compared to 56% citywide. So that's showing that there is a more increase happening in the city center district. We've done 28 matching grants, completed 28 matching grants, and we have another couple that are in progress. The leverage ratio of private to public investment with that grant program is $2.60 for every $1. So $2.60 of private investment for every $1 public investment. We've had 234 new apartments constructed, and there's been a 32% increase in housing in the city center compared to a 12% increase in the rest of Tigard. So what the amendment is proposing, you know, that's all good progress that we've made, but we're finding that we don't really have enough. I've always talked about, and I hope that's worn off on you, that you know, $22 million is a pretty modest amount of money for our vision of this area. And we are interested in increasing the maximum indebtedness of the area by 20.8 million. So not quite doubling the maximum indebtedness. That would bring the total maximum indebtedness to 42.8 million. And that would mean that new debt could be issued until 2036. We're trying to be sensitive to the impacts of the taxing jurisdictions and kind of making that the cap there. We would still be collecting increment to pay off the debt after that for another 13 years, I think, but only issuing new debt until 2036. And again, this was approved by voters in 2006, and we did an amendment that added acreage in 2017. So the approval process is the TCDA board officially initiates the public review process next week at their meeting on Tuesday. Because we're asking for basically, if we were just asking for 20% of the original maximum indebtedness, we could just do that. But since we're asking for more than that, we need to get the approval of the taxing districts impacted. So the taxing districts are representing 75% of the permanent rate. And those 4 districts are the City of Tigard and Tigard-Tualatin School District, TVFNR, and Washington County. And then after we do that, the voters have to agree, and that would be in, the election is May 18th. So you're familiar with all these successes at Willoff, Maine, the Main Street and Burnham Street improvements, Tigard Heritage Trail and Rotary Plaza, City Center Futures Project, and all these other projects, streetscape improvements, Ash Avenue connection, the Burnham Street parking lot, Ash Avenue Dog Park, undercrossing lights, and those 28 facade and tenant improvement grants. Active projects include Main Street at Fano Creek Development, Universal Plaza design, and we continue with the improvement program. So the new projects, or the clarified projects in the plan, you know, there's a lot of new streets in the connectivity plan. Those would be added as official projects in the plan that could receive funding. There is an idea to continue the Tigard Heritage Trail going through what's the commuter rail parking lot, finding a route there, and then hooking up with the existing path that would continue to Hull Boulevard. Some Fano Creek Trail improvements we'd like to do, including lighting. The Universal Plaza, it's looking like we're going to have to do a phase 1 and a phase 2 of that, just because the costs are coming in a little bit higher than expected. So we might do you know, the basic plaza with the water feature and lawn areas and other amenities, and then we might come back to do some shade structures and a community room. There would be the shared parking structure that was mentioned earlier this evening. We would call out affordable housing as a specific project for development assistance, along with our mixed-use development assistance. other pedestrian safety and streetscape improvements, and then land acquisition. And that land acquisition would go help make more mixed use or more affordable housing possible. So the impacts of the taxing districts, you know, the whole point of urban renewal is that at the end of it, the values are greater than they would have been otherwise. And so when the district goes back on the rolls, that they will be getting more funding than they would have, along with the improvements that the community wants to see. City Hall being redeveloped from its non-taxable to taxable uses, there'd be more affordable housing, and the impact that the taxing districts are concerned about is that the division of taxes would continue longer than if the plan was not amended. So the process and timeline, TCAC considering recommendation tonight. On the 15th, the board will initiate public review. What's not on here is we're actually going to the boards of the TVF&R and TTSD for a briefing, and then we would go back to those boards in January for their official decision. January 4th, go to the Tigard Planning Commission. That's a required process where they decide whether the plan is consistent with our comprehensive plan. And then those, as mentioned, the resolutions by the taxing districts have to be before February 9th. And then on February 9th, there's a city council hearing, and notice would be mailed to all property owners in the city on that. And then city council would likely vote to approve and put it on the ballot, and that would go to the voters on May 18th. So kind of rushed through that, but if there's any questions about my presentation or the documents that were in your packet.
Ham, I think you have a question.
Yes, I want to find out. This was good presentation that Sean had. It shows that TIF is working. I mean, the revenue, tax revenue is increasing after the development. So in the document that is being presented, are we going to present something that shows our history, that this is what we did and this is how much revenue increased, so you can extrapolate to the future?
So not in the document, but we are planning a big public engagement push, and we're developing those materials as we speak. And we plan to have a video like we did with the Tigard Triangle vote in 2017. We think that was a very informative and really simplified what urban renewal does. So we're gonna work on another video like that, and we're developing one sheets that break down what successes we've had and what is what we need more funding to do. Right now, our main communications are with the taxing districts because we need their okay to increase the maximum indebtedness that much. But hoping we get that, then we're going to move. We're going to switch gears and move into communicating with the public.
Yeah, I think that'll help. If I were to be convinced about something, if I see those kind of numbers, I mean, that will be very helpful in convincing me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Sean, I have a question on the list of projects to be funded. Mm-hmm. I didn't specifically see the new City Hall, and I thought Kenny mentioned that some of the there would be some of the budget that went to support that.
Right, only for the parking structure. That's
Only for the
only thing
parking
that-
structure. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that TIF would be funding.
Thank you for that clarification.
Council President Goodhouse, I think TIF funding can't go to pay for government buildings. I think that's the reason why.
That's what I was wondering. I wasn't.
It can, but that's another level of approval that we'd have to get from the taxing jurisdictions. If we wanted to include that, they would have to specifically say that that was okay, and we don't want to go there. And really, there's just not enough TIF to go around. We need to complete a whole list of other projects. Putting it into the parking structure makes a lot of sense because it's not just going to serve the city hall. It's also going to serve visitors to downtown, especially on days when the Universal Plaza has a lot of things going on. That's going to be really key. And there is just a growing need. There is a definite competition for parking on Main Street during lunchtime right now, at least on the southern end. So
Yeah.
that parking structure will help alleviate some of that.
Ryan, did you have a question, a comment?
Yeah, I was curious about that question, whether TIF funding could fund the city hall, because I think we've considered land acquisition as by the city as being an eligible recipient of TIF funding, if I'm not mistaken. So is there a distinction between buildings and land?
Right. Our intention with acquiring land would be either for something like to build the Universal Plaza, because we did acquire that property with TIF 5 or 6 years ago. But our intention would be for either a public, amenity or to facilitate redevelopment. Like the example of that is the Main Street at Fano project. We bought that property that nobody wanted to touch, and then after buying it, we got a EPA brownfield grant to clean it up, and then we were able to enter into a development agreement for a private entity to develop that. So, oftentimes urban renewal agencies, if there's a lot of smaller properties that are near each other, the agency might buy those properties and consolidate the properties and make a more developable site. That's a possibility. We'd like to acquire. We actually call out the Tiger Transit Center. If the transit facilities move to on street, on commercial, or if the Southwest Corridor ever comes back someday, the bus functions move to that area, then we would purchase the transit center and build some housing there. So the acquisition is to facilitate redevelopment primarily.
Great, thanks.
Ham, did you have another question?
No, sorry, I left it.
No, that's fine. I didn't want to miss anyone that had a question. Any other comments or questions? If there aren't, Sean, is it appropriate for someone to make a motion that we approve this? Is that the?
Yeah, recommending the amendments to the board of the TCDA would be the motion.
Okay. Is there someone that would like to make a motion?
Haim, this is Haim. I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Elise seconds.
Okay. What I would like to propose, if you will use our raising our hands, if you approve, please raise your hand now. Okay. And you can put your hands down. Anyone? Oops. Scott and Hem, are you saying you approve? Okay, excellent. Okay, anyone opposed? Please raise your hand. Okay. Thank you. So the recommendation.
Is Scott opposed?
Scott, are you opposed?
No, I can't get it lowered. I'm gonna have to probably log back out and log back in.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry about it. Well,
Yeah, okay. Okay, sorry, computer
no
problem.
worries.
It's not very intuitive to lower your hands. I guess it doesn't say.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that the motion passes.
Great.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
So the next thing on our agenda for today is to talk a little bit about our January goal setting meeting. So the next meeting will be scheduled for January 13th, which will be the second Wednesday of January. And our proposal is to start that meeting 30 minutes earlier than our normal meeting. So it would start at 6 p.m. And that would give us the opportunity to have a working meeting, a short working meeting, and also hold elections. And then we would adjourn our monthly meeting and we would go into our goal setting meeting. So we would do both on the same evening. So what we would like to do is to put together a committee, a subcommittee that would be interested in planning that January goal setting meeting. So I know that Ryan and Scott are interested. If you are interested in being on that subcommittee, if you could raise your hand. Okay. I see Elise. And Scott? Anyone else that's interested? Ryan, got you, okay. Anyone else interested? Justin, got you, okay. Anyone else? That would be, we'll schedule a time, just like a couple hours meeting before that January session and do some preliminary planning on how we want to make that session run. Okay, so I've got Ryan, Scott, Elise, Justin. Anyone else? Okay, and nominations are open for the 2020 TCAC leadership positions, both the chair and the vice chair. We have had 2 nominations, one for chair and one for vice chair, but those nominations are still open. So if you are interested in standing for the chair or the vice chair, if you could let either myself or Tom know. We will also have the opportunity to have additional nominations in the January meeting, especially for those people who will be joining the TCAC as new members in January, so we'll give them an opportunity. But in the meantime, if anyone is interested in being in a position of leadership, please let either Tom or myself know. Any questions on the planning session or nominations for next year? Okay. Are there any liaison reports?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we going to say who the?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Not,
Ryan has been nominated for chair and Scott has been nominated for vice chair. Any liaison reports?
This is Chris from the TDA, and there's currently nothing to report at this point, as we are still in a pandemic, and we're hoping to have some good news coming out in January with a few events that we can pull through with the current laws, but a lot of it's still to be determined over the next week or two, with hopeful progression in January to do something on Main Street to help the local businesses that will last into hopefully April, but not anything defined at this point.
Thanks, Chris. Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out while Chris was talking there, great job on those lights downtown for you and the other business members or the TDA that did that. It looks really nice. Good job. Thank you.
It really does, Tim. Thank you. Elise?
Okay, since of course the Southwest Corridor, the big transportation bond measure didn't pass, I think we should all keep in mind, depending on how you voted, it is still a hopeful situation for some of the transportation structures to be built in the future, because Peter DeFazio is supposedly going to be the new chair of the Transportation Subcommittee in Congress. And so that's going to be a benefit to Oregon. And we're hoping to, maybe look at it again and come up with something in the future. So I'm positive that something will happen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, St. Anthony's is handing out food boxes again. If you know anybody in need, we are handing out food boxes.
Thank you, Elise.
Yeah, you bet.
Renat?
Oh, yes, I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris about the trees also. They're beautiful and they really make downtown look really sparkly for the holidays. So thank you.
And we certainly need all the sparkle we can get, don't we?
Yes.
Justin?
I just wanted to give an ode to Chris and the other business owners for the trees. I love driving down 99 and seeing the trees match up with the tigered lights from the tiger tree, and also the symbol at either ends of the tiger downtown entrance that we just updated this year. But I also wanted to just talk about SEPA and the Red Rock Creek Commons facility that just opened on December 2nd. They had their grand opening virtually. Hopefully people had a chance to join it. And yeah, so we're going to be looking forward to having SEPA and Tigard more aggressively in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin. Any other liaison reports or any non-agenda items?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Fayez and then Elise.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a non-agenda item. I just want to tell everybody that it's been great working with you all. This is going to be my last meeting with you. I'm stopping just because of my wife's health issue. So hopefully she will improve and maybe I'll join the team again. And thank you very much to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Fayez. You will be greatly missed. You
Thank
and
you.
Chris both.
Wish you the best, Fayez.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna say, we usually have some kind of a little like sparkling cider or something when everyone.
I
before the
know.
people going off, so everyone have to kind of say bye to those leaving, but.
Actually, one thing, if it's possible that you guys keep me posted, like all the, maybe the emails, the invite you send, I would like to keep in, up with what's going on, because I'm hoping that I can come back later.
We would love that.
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Elise and then Chris.
I apologize. I forgot to give you the dates for the food boxes at St. Anthony's. They're handing out on December 18th, Tuesday, December 22nd, and 29th. There'll be 3 more dates available this month. So please spread the word and send them to the website or have them call the church if they are interested. But otherwise, it's just drive up and get in line on those dates. Thank you. And I wanted to compliment all the actions happening in the new public site with the trees and everything on Burnham, because it's really fun to see all the changes taking place and the art installations. So after all the years that I've been here, it's really neat to see all that stuff happening. Thank you.
Chris?
This is also my last meeting, and thank you everybody for being on this with me. And it's been 2.5 years for me. I will continue working in the downtown more in the manner of with the TDA. And just as Faiz said, I don't know if there's an option that we could stay on the email list just to kind of get more of these updates and informations, as well as, a lot of stuff we've been part of for the last few years that will continue growing and going on. And it'd be nice to see what the progress is. So if that be an option, that would be like from my side as well. And again, thank you everybody for this great time that I had, everything I learned, and I hope that we'll definitely stay in touch one way or the other as we're working closely through the Urban Renewal District with the TDA.
Yes, and I hope that you will join us as a liaison from the TDA whenever you like. We would love to have you back. We've really appreciated your insights and your service. Thank you.
Thank you, and feel free to reach out if there is a need or any meetings you'd like to have a representative from the TDA. I'd be willing to join anytime.
Thank you. That's much appreciated, and I'm sure we'll take you up on that.
Awesome.
I'd make a recommendation that anything to do with the Main Street, Green Street too, that the TDA or Chris Hadinger is invited to those meetings. That way there can be input from the downtown businesses on how that's being affected, or communication both ways.
Great, good idea.
Yeah, I'll pass that along to the project managers, and we can definitely keep people on an interested parties list. Chris and Fayez will add you to that list.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I just want to briefly say about the comings and goings. I've really appreciated working with Fayez and Chris, and really appreciated your perspectives. You brought something really great to the commission, and hope you do stay involved in the future. And a couple more things to report on comings and goings. Angeline Chong did formally resign from the commission. And that means that there is going to be 5 new members being appointed at next week's council meeting. And Chris Sojan, who's still on the line there, you've met. He's the proprietor of the Cooper Mountain Ale Place, replaced Max's Fano Creek Brew House. And the other new member is Adrian Hinckley, who is a mortgage broker who also has an office on Main Street. And the other member is, I'm blanking on his name, but the gentleman who owns Senate, Derek Wright. That's it. Derek Wright is the other member. And then we have a couple of alternates, Chris Cash, who's a property owner on Main Street. And then Chris, I forget her name. But we're going to have 3 Chris's on
Mitchell.
Chris Mitchell, right? Thank you, Councilor Goodhouse. And then the being reappointed is Tom and Ryan and Scott.
Excellent.
And going back to the Universal Plaza shout out, there is a lot of stuff going on there now. And again, if you're interested in being a design advisor, that's an open invitation. You can just sign up on the City Engage page. And there's actually a meeting tomorrow night. We'll be talking water features. But as for the temporary activities, there's a lot of stuff going on there now. There's a scaffolding being put up. That's going to be a temporary art piece. It's going to be just scaffolding for a while, but there's going to be lighting and material added. And then we have those twinkle trees that were part of the Portland Festival of Lights on the waterfront in the past. And then some other cool stuff going on. So if you haven't had a chance to go down there, I'd encourage you, or at least to look at it on the live webcam.
How many trees total are there going to be? Is it I saw 3. Are there going to be more than 3, or is it going to be 3?
It's just a 3.
Okay.
And there's also live trees that we've recently added to in pots.
Thank you, Sean.
Sure.
Elise?
Yeah, Councilor Goodhouse could probably fill us in, but I noticed on the page that they're still accepting applications for utility relief for both businesses and residents, whether you're a renter or not. And those applications are going all the way through, I think it's December 18th, that they're still accepting applications. So we need to spread the word on that because they haven't used up their budget yet. Haven't hit capacity yet. So
to jump on that, thank you for that segue. There's a couple parts. So the utility relief for residents goes through the end of June 2021, where you can get up to your entire utility bill taken care of. Or if you live in an apartment, we just recently changed it too, or made that so it was available, where if you don't get your water bill directly, you could qualify for a $100 payment each month to go towards that, since you can't really credit it, and it most likely goes to the apartment. Businesses are the same way, where they can get the utility credit, or they can get a credit if they don't get the water bill directly to them as well. So that goes, both those go through the end of June. And then with the recent CARES money, or not CARES money, but recent money coming from the governor, went to Washington County, and Washington County is giving the city of Tigard $1 million for businesses that we'll start with businesses that were closed first or drastically impacted, basically hospitality, gyms, things like that. And that should be coming out any day. Sean might have more of an idea, but Lloyd, when he was talking to us, said it would probably be about a week out. But we'll start taking applications. They'll be open for a week for businesses to apply for that. and get money for assistance that was affected by the recent freeze by the governor's office.
Yeah, Lloyd will be emailing businesses regarding that very soon.
That's great news.
I also forgot to mention Justin Watson is being reappointed.
Yay! Great. Any other non-agenda items, comments? Okay, I will wish you all a good night, and for all of you, a lovely, lovely holiday, and look forward to seeing you next